Our guest today focuses on user experience, but from a cultural perspective.
And she has a knack for revealing the biases we all have.
And she's right, because we have a Nancy bias in that we really like her.
And we're sure you will too, this week on Make It.
All right, welcome, Nancy. Good to have you here.
It's awesome to have you here. Typically on the show we have a lot of designers, but you are kind of what comes in and before and after design, which is research.
So I actually probably started off in engineering and in design and realized that research really had the most impact in really sharing a story as to why we're doing things, why we're not doing things. And so research kind of ended up becoming the niche. So I was a jack of all trades and just kind of like narrowed down to this world.
And it's like it's taking a step back. It's like, I think we're all, as designers, I'm looking at a screen, and it's like, hey, you're taking a step back from research saying, hey, you know what? Should you be doing that, or should you not? And all that, super fascinating.
Absolutely. I think I spent a lot of time thinking about prioritization and why we're choosing things. And I talk a lot about the cool factor, and I think a lot of people try to focus on coolness or art in design versus functionality and use case in design.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we have been better as designers lately, dare I say that, because we used to live in a day and age where everything was flashy on a monitor, and I think we do have this huge swing into user experience, which is nice. Do you see that kind of?
I do. I think there's still some missing aspects. It's really important that I share that I think that designers are they're pretty empathetic people. We're taught to learn to design for the user, but I think there's sometimes a missing angle of viewing based on how people kind of empathize for a product. So an example I give is when you're thinking about designing maybe like a mobile for a crib for a child, right? Most people would think if, let's say, you're designing something for a boy, let's put some planes in there, some cars in there, and they're really, really trying to empathize with the user and build something, but what ends up being missed in that aspect is they don't see that the child is looking at wheels or the bottom of a plane or whatever. And so where is it that we're coming with all these great intentions, but still our design may be missing a bit of that empathy or that, as I say a lot, the understanding of cultural practice from different cultures, right?
And you've worked with, a lot of big companies. Now you're at Uber.
So, I've now worked at like Cisco, IBM, Intel, Google, as the last career, and moving into Uber was kind of, a lot of people are kind of surprised by it, but it was actually a pretty easy decision. When I think about people who are designing for the world and really designing correctly or as close to correctly as possible, I think Uber is one of the best companies as far as what I call inclusive design, because the way they operate in these cities, they work very closely with local operations to make sure that they really are designing things for the people. And so imagine, this is not a viewpoint from just San Francisco designing for India. We are actually getting people from that local region, in many cases who aren't even engineers, to influence the design of the products that are occurring in these places. So we really, really get to be very competitive as a result of that. And I really want to understand what their strengths and limitations were in that aspect, because at the end of the day, there are still, we're very far in the process. But I also think there's a lot of more opportunity, especially with Uber, to share with the world how design is impacted from a cultural standpoint or a community standpoint or region.
And it's interesting that you say design, by the way, because I'm like, having sort of a graphic design background, design doesn't mean necessarily like pixels on a screen, which is kind of fascinating.
It's more systems design, essentially, correct?
Systems.
Design to me is, I always tell folks, design is not art, right? Design is problem solving. That's what it is to me. So it's a little less sexy. And so when people come to me and they're like, I have this super amazing idea with colors and this and that, and people love it. To me, if it won't operate well in Thailand with the way they rate millions and billions of dollars as lines, if they're not considering the fact that street names in India are much longer, or the fact that in Haiti, street names may not even be important, if you're not considering those aspects, it can be as cool as you want, but it's really design, to me, great design is learning how to design with constraints.
Yeah, how do you get around bias? Because I'm like, well, I don't have any biases. Of course I don't, but it's trying to identify those. How do you identify your own personal biases?
Well, the first step is knowing that you have bias in general. Everyone has bias, right? it's always interesting to me when people are fearful of something that they might say that might be sexist, all right, or racist, because they don't want to be tagged as like, I'm a monster. And like I said, we'll go back to the mobile example with the crib, right? These aren't people, you guys aren't monsters because you don't recognize it. Labeling can really mess things up, but it's about being uncomfortable. It really is. I'm uncomfortable every single day. You know, I think I've got discomfort like as an expert, right? And as a result of that, I can come into certain spaces and say, you know what? I don't necessarily agree with that mindset, or I think that you guys might be implementing some unconscious bias that you don't realize. And that's a really uncomfortable conversation to have, because a lot of people want to jump to like, what are you saying about me? And I'm like, I'm saying the same thing about myself. Let's take a look at understanding that, you know what, it's okay that we all have been reared in these places, that we have these thoughts that media has presented, but let's have a conversation about it without feeling like we're being attacked or anything like that. And I think that's why it's really invaluable to participate in research studies as well. You know, that's really number one to me, to try to get engineers, PMs, all those folks involved in just watching who's using your product.
Yeah, I mean, and that's kind of what I'm hearing from you. I'm trying to kind of sum this up in something that I can take with
like
me as a
design
designer.
research 101. It's been amazing.
Yeah, and what I'm gathering is that, like, you know, it's okay to be wrong, like as a designer.
But I mean, if you want a few takeaways or some advice, one of the things that I talk about a bit is leveraging privilege. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about. It's about recognizing that you are, in fact, maybe a little more advantaged, right? I know, I usually use myself as an example because I feel like everybody always thinks that there's no way that I have privilege, it's just, there's no way I have bias, right? And I mean, I've definitely experienced like sexism and racism, and I definitely have bias as well, right? And I definitely enjoy learning and being corrected on certain things. I've learned that that's a great part of growing. And so as a result, when I know that I'm in a position that might be more privileged, that's where I speak up. If you're a white male and you're in a meeting and there's a bunch of women, maybe just listen. Maybe step back and actually choose in that day to either step back or say, you know what, I'd love to hear what Nancy has to say, right? Or I'd love to hear if there's any feedback from other people. Or have we considered, you guys are hearing this, right? Sitting in these meetings, like, are we sure the criteria in these meetings are mixed? You know, as far as socioeconomic or gender, have we talked to our ERGs, our local resources, or the folks that we have here to see if we can partner with them to test some of our products, or make sure that if we're even paying research participants, we're giving them to folks that really are making sure that our research is rich and not necessarily medical doctors testing our products, right?
Yeah.
And so just having the conversation and even listening to a talk like this and doing something about, that's leveraging privilege.
Yeah.
You know, knowing where you are and saying, you know what, let me step aside and see if I can learn something else.
Yeah, growing as an individual by sitting and listening. How about that?
Yes.
Because when I'm speaking, I'm not learning anything, really. I'm not. I'm telling you what I know. I'm sitting here and learning so much from you.
Yes,
It's amazing.
Incredible. Now you're
appreciate it.
hosting a summit coming up.
Yeah, so the dream is I'm going to have a tech social impact summit. I'm actually, this is still in work, so it's very much one of those things that it's hopefully going to be something that's very impactful in large. I specifically want it to be something for folks who aren't already woke, so to speak. I hate going to like diversity events where everyone's a woman. We already know our problems. I guarantee it, right? What we need is a diversity event where everyone's white males, right? That's what I'd like to see. So the dream of me thinking about impact in this fashion, this conference is really, how can we not hoard this information about the things that we know about different people and share them with everyone, really, all these companies, so that they're helping the world become a better place too.
Sounds
I don't
amazing.
think this is something that should be secret, right?
Yeah.
I think that we all need to get together in Silicon Valley and all these places and really have a conversation about this, what I'm calling humanizing across cultural borders. If we really are serious about the next billion users, we can do this right.
That's awesome. Love
That's
to hear
a
it.
great note to end on. I am so
Yeah,
inspired. Thank
right.
you so much for
Underline
coming, Nancy.
that.
It's
Yeah,
been amazing.
fantastic.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Appreciate your
Thank
time.
you. Tune in next time. Thank you so much, Nancy Douyon. And thank you, everybody, for watching.